So, do you like reading books? Do you think you can go through life without reading books? Well, that's a challenge, isn't it? So today's podcast, we're going to talk about the difference between being book smart and street smart. Does anybody know the difference? Love to hear your comments. You can always go to my website and leave a comment or send me an email, mrhaggsclass@gmail.com. So, I've often wondered exactly what is the main difference between being a book smart person as opposed to being a street smart person. More so, which one is more important? I often wonder about that. Well, what is book smart? I mean, when you think about someone who is book smart, you think of someone that is considered an academically superior person, okay? In other words, you give them an exam, it's game on. They're great test takers. They partake in academic clubs and debates. And pretty much, as they get older and out of high school and out of college, they all pretty much base their decisions on facts and also peer-reviewed journals if they're in the more scientific fields. But pretty much, the notes that they take in class are what they live by. Very academic. That's exactly what the book smart people are. They go by the facts, which, by the way, is not a bad thing, especially now. However, the concerns I have for book smart people is that they tend to be a little bit stubborn because they only stick with the facts. You got to show me the facts and who wrote them and why they wrote them, which leads me to my next concern. Where did they get the facts from? Okay, we live in a world of different ideologies. We have media out there that gives different viewpoints. Okay, as we know the difference between MSNBC and Fox News, and I don't watch either. But I'm just saying that sometimes, you need to ask, where did they get their information off? Who did you get that information from? And I always go by reputable peer-reviewed journals if I'm going to learn something. But here's the problem. Once you close the book, if you're a book smart type person, what then? What happens then? Well, before we even start talking about that, what are the benefits of being book smart? And there's a lot of benefits, trust me. First of all, knowledge is powerful. Okay, you really got to know what you're doing. And it's not just about academics, it's also about life, also about, living your day-to-day routines and, going about your day and taking care of your health. I mean, being informed and being educated is a fantastic thing. And that's the whole purpose of education, is to get you to keep on learning and learning how to learn, as we discussed in a previous episode. Knowledge is powerful. Okay, when you buy a car, read up on the features of a car. What's the best deal to buy? If you have a medical condition, coronavirus right now, I wish people were more book smart about it instead of going through social media or through memes. And to me, like I said before, I always get my information from reputable peer-reviewed journals. The New England Journal of Medicine. There's a lot to be said about information that you get from there. People who have PhDs, people who are doctors, people who studied this coronavirus for several years. Okay, they're the ones who I listen to. And of course, if you go to the doctor and if you got situations going on hand, like say, for instance, you got a heart problem, you're going to go to a cardiologist. Why? Because they know the heart. They've got degrees in it. They've took courses in it. They've learned from it. Now, I'm sorry, what really upsets me the most is when you got all these films in Hollywood and they show people kind of defeating the odds and making doctors look like they're silly people and we know better than the doctors, and let's live in reality, okay? Okay, doctors know their craft. Just like, let's go with architecture, okay? You're going to trust somebody who just kind of read a social media or a little simple article from a know-nothing newspaper and they say, hey, I'm going to build a building. Okay, good luck. Whenever a architect company puts in a bid to build a building, any kind of building, before a city council or a city manager, they're going to want to know what your background is. Okay, 20 years building buildings. I built this. I built that. I built this. How do you get that information? By reading books. Yes. Same thing with cooking. Okay, so being book smart is a good thing. But here's the problem with just being book smart. It doesn't stop there. It's not going to help you when it comes to application or practice. And I'll tell you right now, my firsthand knowledge of this is, my career as a biologist. I really never cared about being a biologist. So basically, once I read the book, whenever I read a chapter or a assigned chapter that a professor or a teacher would give me, I would just read it, kind of regurgitate it. It's in my mind. Okay, close the book. That's it. Done. Well, as you can see, my career in biology did not last very long. I had no interest in it. Okay, I was taught to study, and I didn't explore because I didn't think about it. Once it was time to find work, I really didn't have any idea what I was doing. So it's a problem to just rely on books. Same thing with cooking. Okay, you can memorize a recipe, but if you don't apply, if you don't go in the kitchen and do it, well, there's a problem there. Now, street smart, however, we're isolating these two. Okay, we've already discussed about book smart. Now let's talk about street smart. Now, what is street smart? Well, it's kind of just the opposite. People who are street smart, their reliance on books is minimal compared to their reliance on actual experience. Okay, so in other words, they don't really read books. They just kind of go with it. Sometimes we associate street smarts when we refer to, like gang members, people who are, tough guys in the street. I remember watching an interview about gang members, how one gang member decided to deviate from their gang and become a studious person. And when asked the gang members and the person who deviated why they went their respective ways, the person who deviated said, because I want to be successful. I want to go to college. I want to go to school. But the gang member said, we don't need all that stuff. We're street smart. We know how to protect ourselves. We know what it is. All right, then. That's actually it's not a bad thing. I mean, if you live in a rough neighborhood, it's important to be kind of street smart. But that's not the kind of street we're talking about. I mean, it's important to know how to avoid trouble, survive, stay alive, especially when you're driving. You need to learn how to avoid trouble. If you're going into a rough neighborhood, you got to learn how to avoid trouble. A lot of us go into schools that kind of rough. It's dangerous out there. There's a lot of fights. There's a lot of issues. You got to be street smart to maneuver your way and have a successful education as much as possible in those situations. However, when we're talking about street smart, we're not really talking about the streets. We're talking about going out there and experiencing. So you're going to have to go out there and learn to deal with people, situations. If this happens, what happens after that? The benefits of being street smart is that you have situational awareness. You learn from experience. You go out and you get your hands dirty, the daily grind, which only serves to improve who you are. You develop people skills, you develop personal skills, and you're very self-reliant. Now, if you want to be an entrepreneur, reading books will help, but it won't help you make money. You need to go out there and develop people skills, communication skills, a lot of skills, not just the technical skills. Like when I designed websites for a living, I had to know what I was doing. When I first started designing websites, I sat behind a book and I read it and I applied it and practiced it. But the bottom line is that if you're going to get clients, they're going to want to see your work. And you need to handle all different types of clients. There's some clients who you love to work for. There's some clients you hate to work for. There's some clients that you may not want them to be your clients. And there's some clients that you want them to be clients, but you've got to compete to get them to be your clients. So it's all about relationships, situational awareness. What do I do if this happens? What do I do if that happens? But here's a problem when it comes to just relying on street smarts. The problem is that you're reliant on watching others. In other words, you have to be mentally prepared to fail and fail often. Who you follow and what you hear, because being a street smart person, you really have to be aware of who you are and your emotions. You're going to go through some rough patches. You're going to have to develop a thick skin because you're going to get hit. You're going to take the beating. You're going to be able to, get knocked out and get right back up. It's a tough world out there, and being street smart is a way to protect yourself from that. We read a lot of self-help books, motivational tapes. Those are really important. You got to keep going. You got to keep getting motivated. Learning rejection. That's a horrible thing. Being rejected, that's not fun. No one wants to be rejected. But you know something? It happens. It's a part of life. And you have to train yourself to prepare for rejections. And you're just going to have to, pat yourself on the back, say to yourself, good try, and move on. I've been rejected God knows how many times. I mean, it's just a matter of life. But for some people, they might get depressed and they just I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to go back to my book. Okay, well, so who is more successful? Okay, is it the street smart person or the book smart person? Well, I would say it kind of depends on what you're doing. The book smart people who make a living being book smart, who are kind of, the wealthier people who are under the book smart category, are usually, professors, top researchers, authors. They make their living reading books, writing books, and of course teaching a little bit here and there. But the wealthier street smart people, well, they're the salespeople. They're the athletes. They're the actors. Okay, I mean, there may be every now and then they'll read a book and then, all right, time to go ahead and put away the book and let's go out there and get into the arena and start doing things. So typically speaking, street smart people are pretty much the wealthier people, but it all depends on, there's exception to the rules and everything. They tend to be wealthier, but that doesn't mean that they tend to be happier. Okay, that is a big difference now. Okay, book smart people are they play the world safe. In other words, they don't take high risk. They they stick to their little facts and figures, and they like I said, they're more academia. Whereas if you want to be a street smart person, playing it safe is not going to benefit you. You got to take risks. Okay, but again, it all depends on who you are. So both the street smart and the book smart people are very different. And what I've learned over the years and what I've observed is that I thought that you were categorized as one or the other. Well, I was wrong. I know very people who are just book smart, and I know very few people who are just street smart. To be successful in this world, you got to be both. You have to be both. You can be both. And you should be both. If you're a book smart person, you are knowledgeable. Okay, I'll repeat. If you are limit yourself to be a book smart person, you will limit yourself to just gaining knowledge. If you limit yourself to be a street smart person, well, you could become an expert, some knowledge, but mostly an expert because you're the doers, the entrepreneurs, the CEOs, and the crazy ones. You make connections, you get your hands dirty, you learn from experience, you trust by your gut instincts. You know no boundaries. However, you got to understand the world is ever changing. The world is ever changing. Okay, so as a web designer, I had to learn how to use different software to better serve my clients. I had to learn how to do things in a more efficient, better way. So what I'm trying to say, my friends, is that to accomplish mastery in life, to be a master in your field, you have to be both book smart and street smart. You got to be both. Then you accomplish mastery. So let me explain and let me go over the three things I just mentioned. To To gain knowledge is to be book smart. To be an expert, you get to be street smart. But to be a master, you get to be both. You read first, you learn, and you keep yourself informed by reading the journals, by reading the periodicals, by going to the library, looking up the internet with intelligent journals, intelligent articles from reputable sources. And then you apply it. You know, when I was a web developer, I had a hard time moving from Dreamweaver 4.0 or Dreamweaver MX, different lower end versions of Dreamweaver. Because the latest Dreamweaver that's out there, very technical, I mean, the what I'm right now, this is the year 2022 right now. Happy New Year. Okay. But the latest Dreamweaver is, quite daunting, actually. It's kind of like crazy, really. It's very technical. It's very cryptic. And it takes a while to get used to it. And for years, I just didn't go there. I stayed with the early versions of Dreamweaver. Well, when it came time to teaching, I had to catch up. I was using Dreamweavers from 4 to 5 years ago. I never really bothered to teach myself or keep myself updated on the latest versions. Same thing with Photoshop. Same thing with Adobe Premiere. Same thing with, video editing. I just stayed with my old style software because that's where I was comfortable. Well, that kind of hurt me because when I decided to go into education, I had to catch up because the students demand, the educational institutions demand you teach the students updated software. Okay, same thing if I was to eventually teach adults. They're going to want to see the updated software. So learning and doing, you got to be both. You got to do both. You got to, be able to read books, read the good sources, and apply. Okay, I mean, just look at the football teams. Okay, look at the NFL. You think a good player would just know their playbook? No. You learn from the playbook, you practice, and then come game time, apply it, execute. All righty. As I said earlier, book smart people are knowledgeable. Street smart people, they become experts. But to be both, you become master. You gain mastery. You are the best at what you do. You are the wonderful person that you are because you gain mastery. Keep in mind, the world is ever changing. Nothing stays the same. So the best thing to do is keep up with whatever changes. Be the first to read about it, then be the first to apply it. All righty. Again, I welcome you to send me emails if you have any comments on this episode. And, one day we're going to have to understand things like artificial intelligence, robots, drones. It's crazy. And, we got to learn how to go with the flow. So read about it, do it, and become masters. If you want to send me an email, mrhaguesclass@gmail.com, or follow Mr. Hagues Class on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, this is Mr. Hague signing out.